But let's go back to smart alerts maybe. So yeah,
Mhm.
Ukraine, you could have monitored that COVID donation wallet as well. I have a Pengu volume above 50 Ether. That's kind of a fun one because when Pudgy Penguins gets a lot of trading volume, I get a notification. So it's like, hey, something's happening with Pudgy Penguins. You could do that for
Mhm.
other NFT collections as well. The way it's configured is this alert type set to advanced, and then it says NFT collection trading, not minting. And I plugged in this one, and I think maybe this is wrapped penguins. So I kind of look at
Yep.
both of them, although there's not much wrapped penguin action
Mhm.
going on right now. And then it's 50 ETH in 1 hour, which doesn't happen very much, but occasionally you see that.
Mhm.
So that's a fun one that
That's
triggers sometimes.
ambitious. Yeah. Triggers sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very rarely, but it does occasionally trigger. It did trigger a while back when I think right before the soulbound tokens, I think it triggered.
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Um, hmm. And then there's an Alameda PTP farmer on Avalanche, which I still have active. But I don't know. I don't think it's very active anymore. And then
Mhm.
I actually have a smart alerts on my own wallets, which I think is a nice way to use smart alerts because it gives you a bit of comfort that
Mhm.
if it's compromised, or even if you get incoming, you can configure it different ways. If you get incoming funds or NFTs or tokens, whatever, you can get a notification for that, right? So that's just kind of a
Mhm.
convenience thing more than it is alpha. But it is quite nice to have that set up. I also have a smart alert on this like massive ETH ICO participant um, because I found them a while back and they put a lot of money into the ETH ICO, and I think some of the funds were just not moving, and so I set up a trigger on it, and it did actually trigger. Maybe we can grab the
Mhm.
address up here and look at it in Wallet Profiler and see. You see like there's been one
Yep.
transaction here, the 18th of June on this one. It has like $100,000 worth of OMG, which has probably got airdropped back in the day. And it's been community labeled whale. And you see it got its ETH from the burn address, which is not very common. That means
Mhm.
that they got their ETH in the Genesis distribution. And they've sent out 213,000 ETH. And where
Mhm.
did it go? It went to these other wallets here. Um, yeah, so it's kind of a fun one that I set up alerts for, and when it triggered, it was like, wow, that's cool. And I tweeted about it,
Mhm.
and then it got a lot of engagement because people are often curious to see what happens with these whale addresses. So yeah, smart
We do
alerts.
have
I think
a
generally, yeah. Go ahead.
we have an ICO label, I think. So not on that one, but I've seen it before, like ETH ICO participant label.
Yeah,
Um,
we do.
so
It's
yeah,
it's
maybe
here.
that's one to
So
add. Or is it there?
this one here, this one here.
Oh yeah, there you go.
We
Yeah, they're like rare to
so
find.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea actually. So we could create a new one and say, if you want, oh yeah, this one, Ethan. That's a good
Mm.
idea actually. So now for anyone who's been an ICO participant, and maybe you want to cut it off and say like, at least $1 million or something like that. By the way, why don't we have comma separation on these numbers? That's uh,
Yeah,
that's
that'd be
kind of
helpful.
annoying. Do you think? Like it's hard to read. Is this 1
Hmm.
million? Is it 10,000? And yeah, so you could call this like ETH ICO participants, and maybe you want to only look at their transactions and token transfers. Um, yeah, and then you can set that up as you please. So
Mm.
I'm not going to set it up now because then I have to input the Telegram ID and all that stuff. There's also some unlocks, which is a common use case for smart alerts. So you set up
Hmm.
some vesting unlocks for tokens that you care about. The typical way to set that up would be that you look at which address is actually distributing the tokens. And then you simply set an alert to say whenever you have outgoing transactions from that address, you want a notification. So for AXS, I think it just says here is the distribution, and here's the token. Whenever you see a transaction related to that, you get a notification on AXS. How do you use smart alerts?
I, of like recent times, much more into NFTs. Obviously, we're like in a bit of a slow period, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But like my smart alerts are NFT based, to be honest. Like I look at the kind of profit leaderboard, and then I go through the people that are actually of interest to me, because a lot of the people on the profit leaderboard are actually just people who bought. So I did that tweet about the how like 3 of them are the same person or whatever, because they all buy or bought punks and art block stuff. So you have to kind of go through and find someone who's actually active as well. A lot of them probably made a load of money and then retired, so they don't really do anything anymore. So I have smart alerts set on that list. I think probably someone. No, maybe on page 2, but I have lists for like people who mint art blocks, because I thought that was an interesting one. And like recently, art blocks have been doing pretty well, obviously, apart from the last 2 weeks. And then also, yeah.
Just to shoot one thing in there, do you make use of these guys, like these filtering ones here, because you can see who's most profitable within recent time periods, which you couldn't do before, right?
I'll give you one thing though about that, which is some feedback. I've been using them because it's a new feature. If you have a look there though, the problem is there's these like 2 free collections nowadays, like over the last 2 weeks, that are just wash trading. So the people that have made the most profit are just wash traders, like the ones that have like one collection bought. So you don't get much signal from like the top few. Yeah, so you have to go and kind of go down a bit, but then at that point they're not making that much profit. So if there was a way to filter out wash traders from that list, that would be ideal. Because I think because of the volume that we've got at the moment, people are doing it a lot to get to the top of the list, you know, on Twitter and on Nansen, I guess. So yeah, you don't get that much from that. But yeah, my smart alerts are mainly NFT based. Once crypto kind of recovers, I'll probably use it more for crypto things. But yeah, I wanted to say, actually, let me mention. So for smart alerts, it's quite a good example to talk about. So for that Nomad hack, if you have a bridge, and like obviously we now all know that bridges seem to be very susceptible to exploits. You can set smart alerts on these bridges, and obviously they do large transactions anyway. So you kind of need to set quite a large boundary, I guess. But then once you start seeing like unusual transactions, then you might feel like, okay, I need to do something here. Because I saw on Twitter yesterday, people writing these threads about, they were like watching the bridge and they were like, okay, these transactions, they look unusual. And then they start pulling the money or whatever. So it gives you a way to kind of easily see early on what's happening. And the best example was obviously on Anchor UST. Like the people, there was a guy, right, who used Nansen, saved a load of money by doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything that's a bit risky is really helpful.
Yeah, he didn't do exactly that, but he did something very similar, which was he had smart alerts on the curved pools. But it's conceptually the same thing, right? So if you do that for a bridge, or if you do it for a pool that you have funds in, it's probably a good idea to, like, when you deposit funds into a pool or a bridge, you should go on Nansen and set up a smart alert right away, so that you get notification. Because you imagine if you could, like, when you put money into a bank account, you can get a smart alert if there's a run on the bank, right? Like it's sort of the equivalent thing. And that seems like what you should do, to the point where if you start doing that, I think it's very hard to stop doing that. You'll feel almost unsafe if you, and that's probably a healthy instinct, right? You need to have some form of monitoring and alerting set up.